Welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit where the inner warrior shines in their light. Today I have a friend of mine, Laurie Etchen. Laurie is also a former classmate of mine. She graduated a year ahead of me in our little hometown of Clear Lake, Iowa. Um, Laurie was a marketer and now she's a retired professional musician, which means she's busier than the rest of us. So,
Yeah.
Laurie, I appreciate you coming on the show and thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Yes. Thanks for asking me, Daryl.
As I mentioned, we grew up in the same little town, Clear Lake. I moved to Clear Lake when I was young, 9 or so, when my mom met my father and married my dad. Were you born and raised in Clear Lake, or were you born elsewhere?
Born and raised in Clear Lake,
So hometown, small town, little girl,
small town Iowa farm girl.
Iowa farm girl. Yeah. Did you grow up on a farm, or just a farm girl
Yeah.
because it's Iowa?
No, grew up on a farm north of town.
And did you guys raise crops or cattle?
Mostly crops. When I was really, really young, we had some animals. I remember having a lot of chickens around, and we had some. I think we had dairy cattle. We had a few horses, but most of that when I don't know what age I was, maybe 6 or 7. It was pretty much just crops that we.
Okay. Yeah, definitely a small town girl. One thing I remember about growing up in that small little community, well,
Mhm.
there's two things. First off, our town was only about 7,000 people. And so, but in the summer, it would swell to about 10 or 15, thousand because of the lake and everyone coming up from all different parts to their cabins and whatnot. So it was very different between normal time and summertime. But one of the things that I fondly remember, other than the Fourth of July on the lake, is that it was very much a high school sports town. Um, Football, basketball, baseball. The town always supported the high school athletics, and I remember that you were a very good athlete in basketball. Was that your first passion, or did you have multiple?
Um, I loved basketball a lot. I mean, that was back in the day when we played, 6-on-6. And that I still to this day feel like girls basketball should be played that way. I was a guard, so that meant I played defense, and I could not cross the center line, nor could the forwards cross the center line either. So it was, three forwards from the opposing team and three guards down at the end. But yeah, I loved basketball. Track, I was very passionate about that too. I loved playing volleyball, but then I broke my wrist
Mm.
high school, so that kind of took me out of the volleyball. So I waited a year for my wrist to heal and went back to basketball.
And what did you run in track?
I ran a lot of the shorter distances. I did the long jump. I did the 100-meter dash, the 220. I don't know if I did the dash or if I was just in relays, but typically in the relays, I was either running a 110 or a 220.
Well, I remember that your class had a phenomenal girls basketball team, and I don't
Yeah.
remember them if they were phenomenal because they were all really cute or just because they were really good or a combination of both. But I remember they were pretty phenomenal.
Yes,
So,
and fantastic coach,
who was the coach at the time?
uh, Kay Bacon.
Oh, yes.
Kay, with her new last name now was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And did you guys win any championships or just go to the tournament a lot?
We no, we came 1 point away from beating Iowa Falls, and Iowa Falls went on to state that year. That was my senior year. So
Mm. You look back at that fondly.
I do, because I mean we really really hustled, because I can't remember how many points we were down. Although I kept everything in a scrapbook, and I think I posted it on Facebook not too long ago, and I think it says that in there how many points we were able to get back. I think we were even in overtime or something, and
Wow.
then it is by 1 point. So
Well, one thing I appreciate about you is unlike some of the athletes in my grade, you don't live vicariously through your high school years. You actually went on to actually do some really
Oh yeah.
cool stuff after high school. There's some athletes in my grade that are still living 40 years back in high school in their glory days. So I'm glad you weren't one of those people.
The only athletics that I'm doing these days is on stage with my band, playing for
Nice.
3 straight. So that's you.
So when I introduced you, I introduced you as someone who was in marketing.
Mhm.
Where did you get your creative side? Because having grown up in the same town as you, not a lot of creative opportunities were presented to us. So
Yeah. I think I mean, I always was, I just remember always drawing a lot. I don't do that a lot anymore. My creativity kind of shifted from drawing to music as I was, in high school. But and I was also involved. So I would say from the teachers, from high school, um, with all the music teachers and Jim Miller with art. And also I was involved in 4-H, which, I hope still people are doing 4-H, because my sister and I were just at the county fair in Mason City there. And we're like, oh, why aren't more people doing 4-H? That's how we learned how to sew and how to cook and do so many things. Um, but I just, I kept on with those. And I think I had gotten an arts scholarship and I went to St. Olaf. And I had great ambition when I went to St. Olaf. Oh yeah, I'm going to play basketball. Yeah, no, that was 5-on-5 and I wasn't interested in shooting. Uh, and I don't even think I took an art class. I really, once it only took me like a few weeks to say, I think I'm just going to focus on music. But I still did theater and stuff too. So I ended up majoring in both music and theater from St. Olaf.
and when you graduated, what got you into the marketing? Did you go up to the city's Minneapolis area and get, a job there, or what led you up, that
I
direction?
I did. I will say, well, when I was at college at St. Olaf, I worked in the information services, and I was a photographer for the school. And photography has always and still is a passion of mine. So when I graduated, I didn't have a job, and I thought, I don't have anywhere to stay. I don't have a job, so I'm just going to go. I stayed with a college friend's parents up in Minneapolis, and I worked at Olin Mills Portrait Studios for a while.
Mm.
Even yeah, I was doing sales, and they had their straight little sales pitch that you were supposed to do. I would do that when the manager came and sat in my office, and when they didn't, I would sit there and have an honest conversation with the people about what they honestly needed. And I wasn't even working full time. I was working like part time because I was also doing theater at night, up in the Twin Cities. And I remember I had the highest sales average in the district. And they couldn't figure out what I was doing. But every time they came in, I would do their sales pitch. And then if nobody was in the room with me, I would sell the way I wanted to sell. So that was kind of funny.
They
But
they couldn't figure out that you were being honest.
right, figure out that I wasn't doing a pitch, right? I was
Right.
having an honest conversation with people. But from there, I worked for a company that was doing silk screening, and I had the silk screening background from working years at Tice Shirts in Clear Lake
Mhm.
during. And so I was able to do some artwork there and such, and doing the silk screening. And I just kind of kept with my photography and things. Although, when I thought I was going to graduate, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to be famous in music when I'm 23. And oh no, I have to pay back all these student loans. How am I going to do that? Rely on my liberal arts, education
Right.
and everything that. I've been doing, all my life with photography and, art and, creating things. So I continued on that path so I could, pay the bills, and had an entire career of doing production services and being a creative director.
And you mentioned that you did theater as well. Were you at Chanhassen?
No, I never did anything at Chanhassen, but I really focused on, in college, I did, straight plays, but my main focus after graduation was musical theater.
Hmm.
So a lot of shows. I think the last show I did was maybe in 2009 or 2010. You know, um, I was in my 40s, and I was being cast as, you know, the comic relief 80-year-old, old lady. So I know that when I'm 80, I'm going to be really fun.
That's well, you got a good start on it. So who did you go to work for in the marketing directive capacity? Where did you land for your career?
Well, I kind of bounced around to a couple different agencies early on, and then I ended up at CTS, which was in Minneapolis, and then they while I was there turned into Periscope, and
Hmm.
that really where I learned, like, the nuts and bolts of agency work. We would quote projects. We would have these exercises that we would have to do. We would all have to quote something, and we would come. I mean, it's a big project, so we had to quote materials and printing and hours to actually create this, whether it be writing and art direction, photography. And I just remember the team was so tight on learning everything that we would come within pennies of each other. And I still keep in touch with, a lot of those people, because and they would say the same thing, that because they have said it to me before, that they're, the bones, the structure of their careers was built by working there with all those people at Periscope.
So most people don't get to retire at 60. Was that by choice, by necessity? What prompted an early retirement?
Well, yeah, good question.
My one for the interview.
Yes, I was 57 when I retired, and um, it was in 20 when I retired, 2021 is when I retired. COVID and stuff was still going on, and I was working at a different agency at that time, Brand Point, and I had been there for almost 5 years, and it was, it was tough working as a manager from home, trying to coach and keep a team together of 12 people, where every week I'm just like, am I going to be asked to lay somebody off? How are sales going this week? I mean, it was a big stress. And but the biggest stress was that, I'm probably going to get emotional about this now. My mom had passed away in November of 2019. And then my oldest sister, Sherry, passed in September of 2020. So, in addition to all the work that I had to do with the company and working from home, it became, I wasn't working, the nice little 8 to 5 job anymore. I mean, we were having to accommodate for people who had kids, or whatever, to work with their schedules just to get the work done. So I was working 50, 60-hour weeks. I had some people that were working better in the middle of the night. So I was up in the middle of the night, approving, video work or something like that. And so after my mom and sister had passed, I became the executor of both of their estates.
Oh, wow.
And having to manage the farm piece that we still had down in Iowa. So I worked for 6 months after my sister had passed, and I was going back and forth, working on the house and, sorting through their things. And finally, I'm just like, you know, I can't, and I don't want to do this anymore. I need to focus on family. I need to focus on me. And just because I retire, I kept telling myself, just because I retire from this doesn't mean that I'm never going to work again or have, a job. But if I do go back to, doing something for work, it would be more like contract, or maybe even something different. So, and yeah, so 6 months after my sister had passed, then I retired. And that was interesting to walk in to my boss and tell him that, well, I'm retiring. And, I thought that it was obvious to everyone because I had been spending so much time going back and forth to Iowa. So instead of them, so then I was shocked that they were shocked, I guess you would have to say.
Right.
So yeah, so now I'm down in Iowa, like, at least once a month or a couple times a month, working on the house. So
And I'll be 60 in a few months, and you're only a grade higher than I am. So we're relatively young, which means your sister was relatively young. May I ask what she passed from?
it took a while. It was listed as cardiac death. So it wasn't necessarily a heart attack, but there were issues there. And that was another thing. I really had to think. My sister was 68, and she had been working, at Target for years, and she had finally retired in June, and she passed away 3 weeks later, or
Wow.
3 months later. So on my refrigerator, I have a Post-it that says, do it for me, do it for Sherry. And that means everything I do.
Well, I don't know what it's like to lose a sibling, but I do know what it's like to have that loss, and I'm sorry for your loss, especially at such a young age. And then, your mom on top of that. Um, when did you start your band, Atomic Beat?
Yeah. So the band, so it was like 2013. I had stopped doing theater, and I found a group up here in Minneapolis called the Rock Camp. At that time, it was called Rock Camp for Dads, even though there were moms or single. Well, now they call it the Rock Camp Experience. But so another friend introduced me to that because I always wanted to, like, be in a band. That's what I wanted to do. And so I've been doing that since 2013. They have a program where you sign up for a month, and whatever band, different, they have, like, I don't know, 7 different options that you can sign up for. You can sing or play the drums or play keyboards or whatever you want. And I did that for probably 4 years. And then there was a number of us, who really gelled and wanted to continue the playing some of the music that we really were passionate about. So yeah, Atomic Beat, we established that in 2017.
So what's the genre?
We are playing 80s new wave and rock.
Okay. And do
So
any of you write your own music?
no, but I that is on my list to do, because that was also on my list to do when I was 23 that I never really got around to doing.
Well, you're retired now. You got time. Write some songs.
Yes, I know. I'm on a mission to get. I'm almost done with my mom and sister's house in Iowa. so I'm on a mission to get that painted, and I just had one room left actually. So I'm going down there next this week to finish that up and set up a music room in that house so I can, transfer equipment back and forth and write and stuff when I'm down there too.
That's cool. Now, a lot of bands, like, you'll hear their backstory on how they came to be as far as a name. And, the Eagles were laying on a mountain smoking a
Oh,
joint, looking up at the sky, and, an eagle flies by. How did Atomic Beat come by?
we actually, everybody who started in the band, and we've had, people change out through the years, but we started as a Blondie tribute band that had played through this rock camp experience education program, adult education program. And another band that was already established, and they were a Motley Crue band, they wanted us to play with them and open for them. And they're like, well, we need a name. And we're like, okay, well, we're not going to be a Blondie band. We're going to, we want to add other things. And so Atomic, which is a Blondie song, I kind of came up with that. Okay, let's put Atomic, and then let's put beat in there. And so then it became Atomic Beat. So that kind
So yeah, I
of,
love that. Yeah.
we do still do play a number of Blondie songs, but and we did play Atomic for a while, but it's not currently in our rotation of songs that we play.
Yeah. Sitting in a room smoking a joint is gotta be Atomic, something. It's like,
Yeah.
I love it. That's fantastic. And you play just in the Midwest or just in Minnesota, or do you travel beyond that?
We have just been playing, yes, in Minnesota. I would love to come down to, or go down, I guess, to the surf.
Mhm.
Try to get booked in there. I know that they have Wednesday during the summertime, they have bands on Wednesday nights. So that's also kind of a push of why I'm really trying to get the house done, so I can have people from Minneapolis come down there to visit.
Yeah, that's it's weird growing up in a place where you're known for Buddy Holly dying. It's like,
I know.
what's your town famous for? Corn and Buddy Holly dying,
Yes.
It's, but it's funny because people from all over the world still come to this day to play at the surf for the tribute to Buddy Holly and Little Richie and all those guys. So it's
Yeah.
fascinating that 70 years later, these people are still showing up, and they're booked out years in advance for all over the world for one weekend in February in Iowa. Not a
I know.
great travel plan.
Great. Their plane actually crashed just 2 miles north of where we were living at the time on the farm. But I have to confess that I have not yet been out to the crash site.
Yeah.
Have you?
Most,
You were?
no, most native Clear Lake people have never been out there. My dad has, you know, pictures of it, or had, and he's passed now, but he lived there his entire 70 years and never went out there. Like yeah, I mean, we go to the surf because they bring in some good bands, but um, yeah, it's kind of a touristy thing that no locals do.
I know. I do need. I'm gonna mark that on that list. I'm gonna try to get it done yet this fall.
Right
And
after
go
you write a song about it,
right
the
after. Yes.
the next American Pie. So you also had your own health scare recently?
I did. I was working at an agency. This was back in 2016, and I had just gotten laid off, and so I was, which was the first time that I had ever been laid off in my life. It wasn't a really, I don't know, it wasn't a really scary thing, but it was a good thing, but it was just different. Um, and so I'm scrambling, to get all my doctor appointments in, because I'm like, well, do I get Cobra?
Mhm.
What should I do? And I went, to my regular doctor, and she said, well, you're past due for your mammogram, so you really should. And she goes, just stop in and they'll give you one. I'm like, okay. So I stopped in, and yep, there's a problem. So they had found cancer. So at least I could focus on that and didn't have to worry about trying to work. But it was, I had, I had, I mean, for those, I don't care. I'm just I'm gonna give all the graphic details, and you could bleep it out.
No bleeping on this one. We even say the F word and don't bleep it.
But I had 3 lumpectomies I tried, and every single time, the MRI would show that they had gotten all the cancer, and then they'd go back in there, and the pathology report would show that there was cancer. And the 3rd lumpectomy, I actually told my surgeon, I said, the only reason I'm trying a lumpectomy again is so we can see how inaccurate the MRI machine is. And then you can tell people don't expect to see anything smaller than, whatever. But, the surgeons and doctors, they can't, they're basically on a script these days. They can't tell you anything and be honest with you because of all the suing that goes on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I had the 3rd one, and there was still cancer there. So then I was scheduled and had a double mastectomy and reconstructive surgery that started at the same time, and that was it was a 6 hour surgery. And I actually so I was unemployed, and I got an interview with a company called Brandpoint, and that was the company that I recently retired from. And the job description matched my resume just perfectly. So I went in. I think it was a couple of days. Oh no, it was over the weekend. I went in on a Friday, and my double mastectomy was scheduled on Monday, and they wanted me to come back the next week, to meet with everybody. And I said, I didn't want to tell them what was going on. So I said, well, I'm going to Iowa next week. And they said, well, how long are you going to be there? And I'm like, yeah, maybe 10 days or something like that. So it was, what's that saying, is that you don't know how strong you are until, until you're faced with it and you have no choice other than to be strong. So I was never really, my mind was always, it really wasn't on the cancer, because that was just like, oh yeah, well, I know I'm going to beat this. I just need to get it out so I can move on. And, I need this job. And so I had the surgery, and I remember I saw my oncologist and the surgeon in the hallway at night. And I said, are you guys talking about me? I said, okay, because you see all these drains here? Like, I've got this interview next week, so I'd like all this stuff to be gone. And they just looked at me like I was, crazy, which I am, and I was at that time. But I went into the interview. It was maybe 9 days after surgery. I couldn't drive. I had to have a friend come and, take me there. And it was a 4-hour interview.
Oh my goodness.
With 10 different people. And I still had the drains going on, and I had to be coherent. So I could only take Advil. I couldn't take the Valium and the Oxy that I was on for all the pain. And I made it. And I just remember one of the questions that my boss, soon to be boss at that time, but had asked me. He goes, how do you think? He goes, I just want to know, like, how are you going to handle the stress of this job? And I just sat there, and inside myself, I'm smiling. I'm just like, you have no idea what I am going, what it took me to get here today. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, I'm pretty laid back, and, I, no no stress shouldn't bother me, but yet I can get the work done. So um, I had another 2 surgeries after that, but it was six surgeries total
Wow.
from March through the very end of December. And but I was very fortunate that they were able to get it all, and I did not have to have radiation or chemo.
And now
So
you're cancer free?
yes, I've been cancer free since 2016.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Congratulations on beating it. That's
thank
awesome.
thank you.
Yeah. So, did that play a factor in your decision to retire? I know it happened earlier in that career, but not wanting that stress again and going through, your own health scare and losing people that were close to you, just kind of wanted a different lifestyle.
There is, I don't think about the cancer as, a lot, and maybe I should think of it more and, reflect upon that. But um, it is, it's all about your health. I mean, we don't get sick unless, we're stressed and we're doing, something is going on in our bodies. So, I mean, I'm really into, energy work and things like that. So I have a couple of Reiki practitioners that I go to, to reset energy, and so that has helped me a lot as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, when you're lining things up, and then having my sister, retire and passing, just months later, it really puts into perspective, like, we don't know how long we have and what's going to happen. So and even another job opportunity came along where I could make, a bunch of money, and I thought, okay, well, I could work at that for 2 years, and then retire. But then I'm like, no, like, and two years means everything. 2 years means a lot in what I can get done musically, a lot in what I can get done, just in the other personal things in my life that I have going on. So
My brother-in-law, he retired a few years back, and my wife, anyone who's heard my story knows my wife has been sick for the last 10 years,
yeah,
chronically ill. She was poisoned by her implants and actually almost died twice. She had arsenic poisoning and heavy metal toxicity. So when people look at life and death, it does change your perspective on it. And
mhm,
um, her brothers, said to her to try to help her change her way of thinking about it. If you live just only as long as mom and dad did, you only have 30 more Christmases. And it's different when you say 30 more years or put it in perspective of 30 more Christmases. And that
that-
really hit home with her on how, man, you really got to make those changes now and live life. Because I'm a transformational life coach, and I've talked to
mm.
thousands of people, and you ask them, are you 75, or did you just live 1 year 75 times?
Ah, yeah,
you know how are you actually, are you living, or are you just existing? And you and I are old enough. You remember that cartoon with the dog and the wolf, and they would punch in and do their job, and then they'd, at
yeah,
the end of it, they'd punch out and say goodnight to each other, right? Well, they did that day in and day out. I don't want to just punch in and go to work and then punch out. I want to actually live a life that is meaningful and has meaning, not just exist through the day because I called it a year, you know?
right, exactly.
So I think when you face those kind of things that you've faced, have you had um, other support in your life to help you through all that, or did you have to do it on your own, or how did you get through those tough times? Because there's are three really back to back to back tough life things.
My family was definitely was there for me when I had cancer and such. Um, and my other sister, Deb, she's still around, so she's been, supportive too with, with mom and Sherry passing and everything. But I, like a lot of people, I think I didn't want to have to rely on anyone, through the whole cancer bit. I didn't even want anybody to come here and have to sit with me for 4 hours. I mean, I just wanted to just keep doing it and just, I don't know, not push it under the rug, but I just felt like, you know, I'm strong. I don't need any, I didn't want anybody, I didn't, anybody to feel obligated, necessarily to help me. But I had so many friends up here in Minneapolis and a great support system. And because I was unemployed at that time, the rock camp experience that I was talking about, they actually held a benefit for me because, I had to meet my, I was unemployed and I had a, deductible that I had to meet, with all these surgeries that I was having. So I've met so many good friends through that program. And then, with my mom and sister passing, again, I would say family, but again, the support system that I have for my, friends is great. And for me, it's really, I mean, I know I keep mentioning going down to Iowa and working on the house, but it's very therapeutic for me. At first it was, oh, I have to go through, all their stuff, and clean out. And then it started to become, well, I'm going to update this house as I go along, as I'm, refreshing everything. And now I'm updating it for me. So people are, asking all the time, well, are you going to move down there or what are you doing? I'm like, well, I said, I still have family and there's a lot of friends from high school and everything that are still either still in Clear Lake or they're getting second homes. And, so they're in Clear Lake, um, at least a few times a year or something like that. And it really is true that, like, for me, especially, that you never really lose your roots, right? Like the love that I have for, my family and friends and, the memories that I have from when I was growing up, those are still true, in my heart. So will I move back to Iowa at some point?
Never say never.
When maybe when I can't haul around all this gear, have any roadies,
Yeah.
then I'll probably move down there. But right now I'm on a mission to get the house done so I can have people come and visit, in Clear Lake and just have a getaway from the cities.
Well, the music community as well has got to be pretty tight. And, they had to be pretty supportive as well because, it's a cutthroat business, but it's still a small knit community. So,
It
there's
is.
got that balance in there,
Yeah, they were very, very supportive through, through all of my comings and goings. And it again, I probably do things differently than other people, but for me, I really needed to do the music, and I needed to have rehearsals during all that time because it um, it gave me peace,
Mm-hmm.
right? Made me feel good. It was something that I could share with people. And, for a, bleep of moment, 3 hours while we're playing music, I can kind of forget about what
Yeah.
I need to deal with in the next, hour, the next few days kind of thing.
Yeah, and your brain needs the release anyway. It can't constantly be on mourning mode or grieving
No,
mode, or it has to move past that, or you'll just get stuck in that. And
yes,
so, Brett Favre, when his father passed away, he played Monday Night Football the very next day, and he got a lot of criticism for playing the night after his father passed, and he played one of his best games of his career because he was giving himself an outlet and a distraction. And, I know when my father passed away 5 years ago, he would not have wanted us to stop living our life to grieve his. He wanted us to move forward in whatever that capacity, so having that release and that outlet probably saved you more than it
Yes.
is given credit for.
Yeah. In fact, I did play a gig the day after my mom had passed. And, so came back up to Minneapolis and did a gig. And then I went back, back to Iowa, and we had our, family gathering. So
Yeah. It should only be in our time, however we need to do it. It shouldn't be, it's kind of like you were talking about with the doctors, if it doesn't fit in a box, then they don't want to deal with the humanity. And it's kind of like you were saying when you were selling the photography packages, like life does not have to be scripted. You can have a human moment and a human interaction, and it will be okay to not be in that robot mode. So,
not everybody a 20 by 24 canvas, glorious print. They might need a lot of little bits here, a lot of little pictures here and there. And that's kind of like life. Not every life has to be grand. You don't even have to think about your life being grand and glorious. It's what are all those little bits and pieces that make up, you know, your life.
yeah, I think you're if my humble opinion, and again, not one all size fits all, but life should be a tapestry, and it should be a mix of the moments, not just one grand moment, Oh, I'm only known for one thing. No, I've contributed a lot of different things to make life what life is. And
Yep.
so I'm glad that you were able to do that and find that. What is we're this will air in November, so we're coming up on Thanksgiving by now.
Yep.
Um, what is 2025 have in store for Laurie at this point?
Wow. Um, I would think kind of more, more of the same, although I want you to hold me to it because I do need to write music, right?
Yes, it's
So
on tape now. You'll have to.
it's on tape. Everybody can see it, hear
Yeah,
it, hear it. Um, more great things with the band. I think I probably do need to take a vacation somewhere other than, okay, going to Iowa is not necessarily a vacation, but it's nice little getaways
yeah,
that take. But I have a couple of college friends, and we always are. One of them lives out in Los Angeles there, and she's an actress. And another is a teacher, a theater teacher, and she lives in Chicago. So we get together, but we haven't done it since like 2017. But we go to Disneyland. I
mm,
mean, we're young kids still at heart, regardless of our age, and we're going to Disneyland. So I was hoping I was going to be able to swing it this year, but I just had too many things on my plate. Again, which is crazy, right? When you're retired, but people will
yeah,
find out when you retire that all the things that you really wish you would have been doing with your life that you thought you were doing, now you can do.
yeah. I always am amused when retired people say, "I need to take a vacation." Like,
Oh, I know.
okay, sure, take your vacation.
Yeah.
If you there's something inside you that has this dogged determination. It's what made you a great basketball player, especially a guard, a defensive, not a position everyone wants to play. They're more interested in the glory of the shooting than the fundamentals of the defense.
Yeah.
It's also what made you a great track star, the determination. It's what gave you the grit to, um, hey, I'm unemployed. I got to figure it out, and I'm going to stay up here to do it. You didn't tuck your tail and run. Um, where there, and you talked about being into energy, and my wife is a Reiki master and into energy
Oh,
healing and
I
does
didn't know.
all, yeah, she does all kinds of really cool energy work.
Oh, nice.
But because of being around her, I've started to become more in touch with my own intuition and my own
Mhm.
feelings. Um, what would you attribute that dogged determination from? Because it came from somewhere and it wasn't just growing up on a farm.
Although I do think well, not necessarily growing up on a farm, but I think it was, probably family push. Um, it's just always been inside me as a kid. I never really wanted to just do one thing. I always wanted to do many, many things and not necessarily be fantastic at one thing, but be good at a number of things. And I think my mind was always, I would just follow where my mind would go, like, oh, kind of like dog, squirrel, oh, squirrel,
Hmm.
squirrel. So sometimes my attention span, isn't, isn't always focused when I was growing up. But, and I think it, as a young kid, still it was all um, the teachers that, were really like saw, I don't know, saw a talent in me or something and then pushed me to do something. I remember, I don't know if it was junior high choir and Mr. Winter was
Mm.
at, I think it was,
Hmm.
um, and he made me accompany the choir because I could play the piano and I hated it. It scared me to death. And there were other things that, teachers did along the way that kept pushing me, for things that I didn't want to do. Like I didn't really want to sing second soprano, but Mr. Wold made me sing second soprano when really I thought of myself as an alto. But it was all of those things that, people seeing something and then pushing me. And then as I got older, I'm just like, well, now I have to push myself. And I never, I don't, I think of myself as a very positive person. I try not to dwell on negative things because that just kind of, eats you up. I know, and when somebody else is telling me their woes, and if it's negative, I'm just like, I can't, I don't say to them, I can't listen to you anymore, but
Right.
I try to redirect. So I, I don't know. I mean, it's, something from my gut. It's something from all the people around me that I let them push me and I let them, teach me.
I will say we as a school and as a community, and I don't, obviously it's 40 years later, I don't know how they are today, but I know in the 80s when we were in the system, we were blessed to have some really caring, loving teachers who saw more in us than we saw in ourselves and were really good at getting us to get that out of ourselves. And, there's a whole host of teachers who throughout our community were amazing at that. And I think there's a lot of our class and your class that are successful because of those teachers that we encountered at those formative years, you know.
I would say that's true. Yeah. And I try to, in my, career working as you know, a manager and, managing people, directing people, that I tried to do that for them. And it was, it's a great feeling when, some of your, some of my past employees, will come back years later and thank me for how how I pushed them or something. And they deserved it because I saw in them, you know, something that they weren't doing, that was meant for them, that was meant for them to do.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think we were blessed that way for sure.
yeah.
You one of the things that I appreciated about you growing up and following a year behind you, our school had a lot of diversity as far as not ethnic diversity, but a lot of diversity. We had the jocks, we had the druggies, we had the athletes, we had the debate team. We had an eclectic group of personalities, not an eclectic group of ethnic background, but definitely personalities. And one of the
Mhm.
things I really appreciated about you was that you weren't one of the mean girls. You were inclusive and you were kind and you were fun and you brought everyone, kind of into your circle warmly and welcomingly, and you didn't have that mean girl spirit about you. And 40 years later, I just want to tell you, I noticed it back then and I appreciated it, having seen it done to too many others. So
Thank you. Yeah, I've always kind of, yeah, felt like an all-inclusive type of person. I didn't like uh, you know, the lanes of, traveling in one lane. And in my career, I took that path too, of being very diplomatic, and, not, I just kind of soak it all in, take it all in. And that's probably being that way or learning that from school helped me in my career too.
if you were to talk directly to someone who's listening to this and knowing, your life wasn't easy by any means,
Right.
and your adulthood certainly wasn't easy by any means, but you have this stick-to-itiveness, this
Hmm.
this grit, and you're living on the positive side of life. And anyone who's listened to any of my show understands that I hate toxic positivity. I
Mm.
hate people who think it's sunshine and rainbows 24/7.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but to me, there's a difference. Positivity is that there's hope and there's a way out and there's an answer to every problem. There's a solution for every problem. Toxic positivity is different. You live a positive life, not a toxic positive life. What would you say to those people who are listening, who are going through whatever they're going through, to help them get to the other side?
Gosh, I mean, simple, you know, you can do it, right? Like, focus on you. It's okay to, have the attention on you, but you have to, if you need the help, allow the people, allow your friends, allow your family, your coworkers, to help you. You don't have to do it all, by yourself.
I think it takes a lot of courage to ask for help, because so many of us are conditioned to, you know, not be a burden on somebody else and don't want to bother them and don't, but we take away their ability to give their time and their talents or
Mhm.
their whatever that they can give. We take that away from them when we don't ask, you know. Um,
A lot of people are givers, and they want to give, you know, regardless if it's their time, their feelings, or if it's, a gift of some sort. And that makes them feel better by you taking it and receiving it. Um, I'm a giver, but sometimes I'm not a very good receiver, and I really had to click on that and and work hard on that. But as far as, like, if you have, like, if you just have, like, weight and stuff pushing down on you, and your head is swirling with stuff, I mean, you have to, as much as you can, push it out and stop. I mean, you just have to, stop. I just flashes, somebody had posted this video from some program, and Bob Newhart was on there, and this gal who walks in there, apparently she was an actress from Minnesota. Anyway, he says, "Stop it, just stop it." And you know what? I mean, it really is true. You have to be able to just, stop, and you have to think of, I mean, give yourself time to have that, to soak it in, where you've got, okay, I've got all this and it's so heavy on my shoulders, and realize it, and then find a solution. What are you going to do about it? Nobody is really going to necessarily change that for you. They can help you, and they will be there to support you if you want to change it. But it's hard to change your mindset on on things. But you
Especially
also,
when we get older.
yeah, you really have to look for all the things that you're grateful for. And you probably know, with Reiki and everything, following the law of attraction, wake up every morning, and or before you go to bed, both times, what are the three things that I'm grateful for today? Before you go to bed, what are three things that happened that were great today? Especially if you're having a really bad day, you just need to think about, okay, what went well today? What was good? Otherwise, you won't be able to fall asleep. You'll just going to be going, racing around.
That's true. The mind can't hold the positive and negative at the same time. I'm gonna ask you the one final question that I ask all my guests.
Sure.
What does a warrior spirit, or having a warrior spirit, mean to Laurie?
Wow. My friend said, she goes, what is a warrior spirit, vodcast? That's what you call them, vodcast?
Podcast. Yeah, video podcast.
Video podcast. I said, I don't know. I'll let you know when I'm done. But to me, it's really, it's pushing through the best you can. It's persevering, right? It's approach everything with, I can, instead of I can't. So
Absolutely.
that's how I've tried to do most everything in my life.
Well, from what I've seen, you definitely embody what I refer to as the warrior spirit. And to me, those who are helping others get through what they've already been through and still reaching behind to help others find their way, totally embodies, the true warrior, and never giving up, standing up when you need to. I tell people all the time, it's okay to rest, just don't camp. You can't stay in your little pity party. You have to move through it. Whatever time frame that is, doesn't have to be tomorrow, but just can't camp there, and you have to keep moving forward. So you definitely embody a warrior spirit, and I'm glad that you finally came on my show to share your journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty, and have a blessed 2025.
All right, thanks. You too.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.